Okay. Can you read me? Do you hear me? Give me a yes. Give me a no. Hopefully yes. Y'all there? Oh, coming in quick. Coming in hot. Coming in hot. Lots of thumbs ups and some smiley faces. Y'all can hear me, yes? Yes. Borbari, yes. Guru Do Bitcoin. Oh, great. Bitcoin. The money of the future. Okay. All right. Fire. Thumbs up. Lots of thumbs up. Hi from Barcelona. Cool. All right. Y'all kind of know the drill. I'll wait another minute or two for a few more people to populate the landscape, and then we'll get the party started, right? Sound good? Getting away from Leslie Harris, Leslie_Harris_art. All right. I was a couple minutes late getting to the party. Greetings from Mexico, Barcelona, man, Spain, Barcelona, all over the place. Cool. Iran. You know, I had someone from Iran on here last week. That was really strange. There was someone from Iran, and they were deaf, and they started saying, "Hey, I'm deaf. I can't understand you. I have no idea how to." Someone from Nepal, Argentina, Brazil. This is great, cool, all over the place. Anyway, there's no hearing impaired feature on here, and I think I mentioned that. And I'm probably not the easiest person to understand either. Germany, Georgia, the country, not the U.S. state, the first to open everything up. Fuck, that's a mess. Hello, another one from Spain, cool. London in the house. Gilbert Menasa, I think I got a message from you last night. Rio, okay, let's get it going. I'm gonna do like I've been doing, which is I'm gonna go through a few little housekeeping things, and then I'm gonna talk briefly about a piece, not a new piece, but something that something from a body of my work that I think is relevant and important and a little underserved. Todd E. Camplin, I actually know that guy. How about Big Bad Bob joined. Okay. I'm gonna get some hardball questions here. Some people I actually know in real life are joining the feed. I think I'm gonna get some tough ones, some tough questions. I might have to sit down and think hard. Anyway, so let me get through the housekeeping. I'll jump over and show this piece, and if I'm feeling it, maybe I'll take some questions. So get out your pens and papers and party hats and balloons and confetti and your masks, and let's do it. Okay. I would like for everyone on here to send me their favorite quote. It can be yours. If it's not yours, make sure that you credit the author. I'm really into quotes, as some of you know. You see them on my post. And email those to me if you can. Certainly don't leave them in the comment section here. That would be great. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about your quotes. Don't think too much about it, but drop those into an email for me. Also, one other thing I was thinking about based on a lot of emails I've been getting, which is let me back up. As I've mentioned before, I've been doing a few of these individual 1 hour critiques with people, and they're going quite well. I also am I am trying to point people in the direction of group critiques if they're not ready for an individual critique with me for an hour. And but then there's one other thing I was just thinking about the other day, and I'm wondering if there would be some of you out there who want to do a very quick 20-minute conversation with me. It would be a Zoom meeting. Obviously, because it's 20 minutes, the rate would be significantly less than a 1-hour critique, and it wouldn't be a full-blown, rigorous deep dive of a critique. Those are serious, and there's preparation that's involved, and I generally end up, most of the people I work with on those, it's not just 1 hour and we're done. That does happen, but a lot of people it ends up being sort of a long-term, a more long-term situation that goes for several hours, sometimes even many months. It just sort of depends on the student that I'm working with. I haven't done them in quite some time until the pandemic started and I started doing the live thing. It'd been quite some time since I'd done them at all. But anyway, I'm doing them. They're going pretty well. I've been able to manage a few of them, and it's all good. But for different reasons, some of you who've inquired may not want to do a group thing, which I think could be really useful to you too. The art professor I know who's a friend who's organizing them has been very organized about them. But anyway, some of you don't want the group, some of you don't want the full 1 hour, but if you want to do a 20-minute thing with me, that's cool. It would not be a deep diving critique. We could talk about whatever you want to talk about. You might have, if there's, one of the reasons I'm bringing it up is because there's been a few people who've emailed me and they've got questions. They're not as concerned about, they're not as concerned about going into more real specific things about their work and how to improve their work. They've got a variety of other questions based on, art in general, art ideas, career, things like that. How am I doing what I'm doing? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, once again, that would be, if you're interested in that, that would be an email that you would send me, and the subject line needs to be 20-minute critique, and I would send you some details. About that. 20-minute critique, subject line. Make sure you email me. Don't post in my comments or anything like that. I may not even see it there. I had someone the other day inquire in a comment of a post from a few days ago, and I just happened to catch it. And then she emailed me, emailing back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I keep rotating around because it's dark and then it's light and then it's dark and it's dark, light. I like it better light. Okay. Anyway, so I hope I covered that. Let's see if that's something that works for a few of you. Obviously, if you're interested in the individual critiques or the group critiques, you can send me an email about that too. Those are sort of standard operating procedure. I mentioned those last week too. Speaking of which, I did post. I posted last week's Instagram Live on the press page of my website. So if you go to howardsherman.com, it's www.howardsherman.com. There's a link to my website in my profile. And you go to the press page, you'll see the last few of these videos. I don't know if I'll post all of them. I'm just posting, I forgot to do the first couple. I somehow deleted those, and so those are gone forever. And that sucks because I thought the first one was great, the first one ever. But the last few, I've been putting them up there, and if this goes well, if I'm feeling it, we'll put this one up there too on the press page of my website. The link is in my profile. It's howardsherman.com. Also, the new Press Kit 2020 is there. I believe it's still the top link on that page, but there's also a button at the bottom of the page. So if you or anyone you know would be interested in that really small little press kit, click on the button, check it out. There's no harm. It's a small little PDF file. has some recent work and all kinds of detailed information about it. You might know people who are interested in seeing that. Maybe they want it's all hyperlinked, so you can click on certain images and go to the shop and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so that is that. I think I took care of all the housekeeping there, and I did it pretty quickly, so I'm proud of myself. I like to keep these kind of short because I, like you, need to get to work and not screw around on Instagram. Too many of y'all are on here just sort of screwing around. Okay, here we go. I am going to go over here and flip this around and try and back up. This is a piece I did in the studio in New York a little over a year ago called Guns on the Table, Cash in the Drawer. And I don't have the dimensions. It's large. Don't have the dimensions. This is I've done these assemblage pieces, and several years ago I started doing these large. I started taking large pieces of canvas or unstretching old paintings and collaging on top of them with paper and sort of doing my thing with paper, and those were great. And then I kind of got to a point where I wanted to. I'm really jumping. I'm accelerating the history of this for time's sake, so I'm going to keep it very brief. But then after paper, I started working a little. I started essentially doing the same sort of thing, but doing it more with unresolved, cutting up unresolved old paintings and the interesting parts, and using those, tearing and cutting and using those, and then also using raw canvas to do these sort of what I would call assemblage-y sort of pieces, where I also noticed the surfaces were starting to get a little flatter again, although they're very I'll zoom in a minute, but they're very sculptural, text and tactile, and there is a three-dimensional element to them. I nonetheless started to I started to notice they were flattening a little bit again, and that's okay too. I kind of went through that phase of really sculptural surfaces pretty quickly. Anyway, so this is one pretty relative, although there's hot spots of pink and yellow and things like that. It's a relatively neutral color palette, very achromatic, and I like it, and it's been pretty well received. And I've had it hanging here in the studio for the last several weeks, just looking at it, thinking about this stuff. I like the way they. This isn't the best wall to be hanging it on, but it's certainly good enough to give you an idea. And I'll zoom in. I'll zoom in a minute, but yeah, I definitely feel as though I developed a whole nother vein of my work and a whole nother body of work with these. And like everything else that I do, one thing informs the next, and they've certainly informed the paintings on canvas that I've done concurrently and since then, as well as the small works on paper and vice versa. Everything feeds everything else. And I'm seeing some questions that I'll get to in a minute that I think might be interesting related to this stuff. But first, I'm going to zoom in really quickly and show you a few details. As you can see, it's kind of, yeah. Where you see something that looks like, maybe looks like masking tape or duct tape, it's actually just paint. It's not actual tape. And they hang by the grommets. Some of the surfaces are matte, like the raw canvas here, and some of the surfaces get a little more glossy. And the intention with these is sort of more of a sense of physicality, both with the material and the way that they're made. I mean, that's kind of a recurring thing in all my work. But I do like them installed like this. I do like them hanging like a tapestry or drapery, or I like them hanging in a way that reiterates the physicality of the material. And you can even sort of get a sense of that when you look really closely, at the edge, at the perforated edges and that sort of thing. They're rectilinear, although there's a lot of irregularities going on, right, along the edges, which is something that's important to me. Holding on to the rectilinear notion, yet there's still some sort of irregularity going on there. Here you can see little details. I don't even know what I wrote there. What did I write? Do you remember? Okay. Anyway, I think I'll back up one more time. Give you one last look. Good. Okay. That's pretty quick today. That's really all I've got for y'all. I think what I will do is go ahead and take some questions, and we might get out of here quickly so everyone can kind of get back to work, right? Sound good to you? I think that's good for me. Good for you? Let me scroll back through. Okay, from Toddy Camplin, critiques are a two-way street. What do you... I'm going to sit down, put on my thinking cap again. That helped. I think that helped last week. Okay. Critiques are a two-way street. What do you feel you're getting out of them conceptually and practically? Is it helping you with your own work? Yeah, it can. I mean, Todd, that's a really, it's a pretty broad question. So much of that relates to who you're talking to in a critique, whether you're receiving one or getting one, So, yeah, they're a two-way street. I think that the professor, let's just say the professor and the student, that's the critique, right? That's generally, you can call the professor the mentor, professor, teacher, whatever. So the critique is a two-way street, and I certainly think that there's a lot of times it may not go said nearly enough. It might go unsaid or unstated, where the professor is getting value out of the critique as well. And that can happen in many different ways, but certainly their job isn't for them to get value, it's to give value. And that's when I've been doing them again recently, that's the number one thing on my mind. We're not talking about me, we're not talking about my work. We can't avoid having our own we can't avoid ourselves in giving the feedback that we're giving to the student if we're in the professor role. But I think people learn from each other in all communication situations. So conceptually and practically, yeah. I don't really think about the difference between conceptual and practical. I think that you pick up tips, practical tips when you're talking about things, and you conceptually. I would say that's synonymous with just ideas. Yeah. You're sharing ideas. So the question was a little bit generic, but hopefully that helped. Just in my previous experience with this, and then when I taught a little bit of critique classes at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston's Glasell School a few years ago, it was really all about, focusing on the student's work and keeping that in mind, So that was that. Hope that helped. Hi from Armenia. Everyone's everywhere. Do you make them as you go, or do you make mini versions first to go by? Becky, sketches, do you make them as you go? I don't really know if you mean, do I do preparatory sketches before I make larger work? The answer is no. Any more questions? It was generic. It was a generic question. Thanks. Okay, can we get some more questions here? Hello from Miami. There's a few questions on here, but I don't think they're really things I want to spend a lot of time on here getting into right now. Is that going to be it for today? We'll get out of here quickly, huh? Hello from Miami. Any more questions? Okay. Going once, going twice. I skipped a few questions, but I just didn't think that they were really something I wanted to get into right now. Another one from Toddy Camplin. How does your small work relate to your larger work? The small stuff informs the big stuff. The big stuff informs the small stuff. But the small stuff has ended up. Because essentially my small works on paper have become my drawing practice, and so I'm able to work a lot of things out quickly in those. And if there's one thing that's really I've noticed happening is there's this distillation of form that's become a little more simple and essential in all of the work based on making a lot of small drawings. So that's really that. I mean, I think, and as I've said before, I think it's always important to keep drawing, and if you can carry a sketchbook around with you, that's even better. Becky sketches. How do you build a composition at that scale? Like you build that's a weird. I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, you build a composition as you build a composition, taking the proportions into consideration. And editing. I don't know if that's a really good answer to that question, but that's not really, that question's a little vague. Sally K paintings. Before you start painting, do you know what mood or color scheme you want to work with, or is it impulsive? I try and say it's impulsive, but then there's recurring color choices that I come back to all the time without planning ahead. So yes and yes, no and no, I don't know. I mean, I hope that answers that question. Different people are different. There are people that know a week ahead of time, I want to make a yellow and purple painting. And then there's other people who don't want to know until they jump in there and start doing it. I'm kind of one of the latter. I like to just sort of jump in and not know, but then you come up for air at the end of a week or month or a year, and there's these recurring colors that you've been using for a really long time that seem to show up in different ways and shapes and forms. At least that's been my experience. I don't really feel the need to sit there and overanalyze it. Like I've said this before, there's certain palettes I've chosen for certain reasons, and I've gone into that in detail in the past. I'll revisit that later, but yeah, I try not to think about it too much. Sally K paintings. Art Charv. Do I work in other media? I don't. I've had some failed attempts at that, and but for right now, no. I mean, I guess if you consider writing, yeah, I guess I'm writing every day. I don't really consider myself a writer, but now that I think about it, I mean, I've logged a lot of words in per day for a very, very, very long time. I don't really consider myself a writer, but I'm writing, so that's different media. But as far as visual art, I'm looking at a failed sculpture right now that I'm not going to show y'all because I'm just not quite, maybe I'll do that next week, but I continuously, I experiment with other forms of visual art, but nothing really that I'd say is of, working right now. Thank you for pointing that out, that there's a time delay. Becky sketches. Another good question. Anne Lee McKenzie, how do you store your tapestries rolled up? No, I store them flat depending on where I am, I kind of like, and then how much wall space I have, I would let them just sort of hang on walls. But otherwise they're stored flat. I never roll them up because the surfaces, as chaotic as the surfaces look, they're actually very specific, and I don't want them crushed or smushed. Everyone say smush 10 times real fast. Okay, skipping over a few of these. Art of Rebecca, have you thought about doing any 3D work? Well, I guess I do 3D work. I do. There's three-dimensional surfaces to my work, even though most of the time it still hangs on the wall. And like I mentioned before, there's failed attempts at sculpture in here right now. Right, David Bridgman, I agree. Another good one from Toddy Camplin. Cartoon forms have disappeared. The cartoon forms are still there. The cartoon forms are still there. Maybe they have become a little less evident in years, and I appreciate you paying attention to that, Todd. Thank you. But yeah, I would argue that the paintings have maybe gotten a little bit more object oriented in a more simple way, even though there's less evidence of overt cartoon figures. That stuff's still there, maybe less directly, but to me the pieces feel more object oriented than ever before and more overt use of figurative references. But the fact that you might be reading them differently, an informed eye like yours, that's actually kind of cool to me. I like that. So we're keeping it short today. I think we're gonna wrap it up pretty soon, right? It's amazing how quickly this goes. I'm skipping a couple of these. Studio Payment, I don't know the best place to sell your prints. Maybe there's an online website. Okay, that might be it for today. I am going to wind it down just at about 30 minutes, which is totally okay. It's totally cool by me. Again, just a reminder. I'll scroll through for one or two more questions, but just a quick reminder before we sign off. If you got a favorite quote, send it to me. Make sure if you credit the author of it. Send emails regarding individual crits, group crits, or if you're interested in that 20-minute Zoom call, which would be a lot less of a formal engagement, shoot me a line about that, and I'll send you some details about that. We've had some good conversations in these previous ones that I think have been really helpful to people, which is the reason why I'm doing this. And so I've posted those on the press page. I posted some of the recent ones on the press page of my site. So if you go to the press page at howardsherman.com, you can find those videos, or a couple of those videos. You can also see the new Press Kit 2020. There's a button there and a link for that. So feel free to share that with people who might be interested in looking and collecting my work. Anyway, the other thing too is one more thing I want to mention before we go is if you do have some questions that I think I might be able to answer in this format, feel free to send me those. Feel free to send me those too. Email is really the best. Email is the best, Art of Rebecca. Email is the best. Slide into DMs, not the best. And I think that's going to be it for today. Okay? All right. I will talk to y'all soon. All right. Thank you. Bye.